Hey guys, it's Chuke here from Chuke's Outdoor Adventures. Well, as many of you know, I am a big 10mm fan. I haven't done a 10mm list video in a long time, so I wanted to update it because we do have some fairly new players, and I may surprise you how some of my tastes have changed. So let's just jump into it. I've got the top 10. Now, as always, I'm going to start from my least favorite, number 10, all the way to number 1. Now, before we get started, I have to give a shout out to the Yeet cannon. That is the High Point JXP 10mm. It is a fun pistol, but it's just kind of a beast. It's horribly top heavy. The slide is just really awkward and a lot of awkward recoil when it comes back. But all in all, if you're looking for a affordable 10mm that's going to shoot, then it's a good value, 150 bucks roughly. And if you're just looking for a truck gun, or if you're new to 10mm on a tight budget, I think this is going to get you into a American-made 10mm that shoots and works. It could save your life, but it doesn't compare to the other ones. The trigger's pretty bad, the mechanism, it's awkward to shoot. But hey, for 150 bucks, it's going to get you a working 10mm decent barrel length. So shout out to the High Point. It didn't really make the list because these other ones are like, 100 times better than that. So starting off at number 10, I'm going to go ahead and give it to the Smith & Wesson M&P M2.0 10mm. Now, as many of you know, this model had a ton of problems when it launched. I had one that I couldn't get to stop malfunctioning and jamming. My buddy Frank the Tank had one in that he sent it in to Smith & Wesson twice to get repaired. He replaced every spring and part he could get a hold of, and it still wouldn't quit jamming. So he finally got rid of it. He got a Sig X10, which we'll talk about. But I will say that I had the opportunity a couple times to shoot their performance center that had the comp on there and the really long barrel, and that seemed pretty good. Now this pistol, it felt like a 9mm in the hand. The ergonomics were the best out of any 10mm I've ever felt. That blade on the trigger, just everything felt wonderful about it. And to be fair, that guy in Alaska last summer stopped a charging brown bear with his M&P 2.0 10mm, and it worked good for him. I think he had hard cast in it, and it saved his life. So I'm really hoping with some of the new versions that come out, they're going to take care of some of those problems they initially had. But like I said, that performance center is a great pistol, and a lot of people report that they don't have problems with it. So I am listing it at number 10. If all the problems were worked out on it, it would be much higher on the list. So number 9, this may surprise some of you because I've always touted this as one of the best, is the FN 510 Tactical. I bumped it down to number 9. Used to be like number 2 or 1, but it's the price. I own 2 or 3 of them. They made different versions of it, but at $1,100, it's just kind of ridiculous. You could get 2 Glock 20s or 2 XDMs for that price, and the XDM is going to have a better trigger and be just as reliable. So I couldn't really, support the price on it. And then when Kentucky Ballistics shot it suppressed, you had the frame snap in half. So just kind of interesting. There were a couple reported problems. I thought it was solid, and it's still a good choice if you can afford it. There was a sale on them for a little while, but now they're, still above $1,000. So I typically don't recommend them just because you could get 2 solid 10mm for that price. So that's mainly the reason. Number 8 is the Tanfoglio Steel Witness. Now, I've owned 3 of these. The compact model is super hard to find. I wish I wouldn't have sold it. But these are just solid shooters. They're beautiful, all metal guns. and they're just a work of art. They're a great collector's piece, and they shoot. They're hammer fired. It's just hard to keep up with Tanfoglio. They changed to the Defiant, and now there's just a million models of it. They've got competition models, and I can't even keep up with it because it seems like every few months they're changing the models. It's really confusing to figure out which mags will fit which, but there's no doubt that it's an awesome pistol. Now, the Steel Witness was based on a CZ75 clone. It was basically a clone of that chambered in 10 millimeter, but they're actually pretty popular in Alaska. The older ones are highly sought after. They have that wonder finish, just a really cool 10 millimeter, and I would recommend, you know, if you wanted to carry it in the woods. The recoil isn't bad because of that all metal frame, and it's just a really impressive 10 millimeter. So that's number 8. Number 7 through number 2 are all very close. I mean, they're just a hair above each other. You could take either one and put it at the top of the list, and it's not going to be too much different. So I like all of these roughly the same. I just gave a slight edge to each one, and that's why I listed it in this order. So number 7 is the Sig X10 line. Now this has just been a solid 10 millimeter from day one. I mentioned Frank the Tank, who got rid of his Smith & Wesson M&P M2.0 10 millimeter, and he started collecting Sig X10s, and he never looked back. They just have shot for him perfectly, no malfunctions. The original bull barrel, you know, 5-inch barrel, and they just are so ergonomic, very thin grip compared to some of the Glocks, just fit your hand really well. And now these other models they're coming out with, they have the X10 Comp, several models where they did some Cerakote. Now they have the Endure line, which they Cerakoted it, and they gave it the Topo Map Cerakote, and it just changed the grip a little. It's just amazing. It's on my list for sure. So you can't go wrong with the Sig X10. Optics ready. Very cool. Number 6, I'm just going to have to say the Glock 40. You know, the Gen 4 had the MOS system. You could put a red dot on it. It's got a long barrel. You're getting pretty good velocity out of it, and it's just hard to beat Glock out of all of these because they have more aftermarket parts than any of these. Like, I don't think you could get a KKM barrel for, you know, your FN 510 or the Sig X10. Not that they need it, but for the Glock 10 millimeters, you can get the KKM barrels and just all kinds of accessories, and just goes on, and they're really solid shooters. You know, of course, I have my complaint about the grip angle and the trigger, but, you know, with practice, you can beat that. And, you know, from all the videos I've done, Glocks have saved more lives on bear attacks than any other one. We just consistently see, you know, the Glocks. And that brings us to number 5. I'm going to say the Glock 20 Gen 5. And I put the Gen 5 below the Gen 4 just because I initially had some problems with my Gen 5, but then after that, I cleaned it and lubed it up, and me and Chuck couldn't get it to fail. We shot 220 yard cast, everything. Chuck was actually trying to get it to fail for a video, and he couldn't. So it's pretty solid. I have just had better luck, and I've heard better reports from the Gen 4. And you know, you get the KKM barrels for it, and they're just amazing pistols. There's all kinds of chest holsters you can get for them. So number 5 is the Glock 20 Gen 5, but above that, I have placed at number 4 the Glock 20 Gen 4. It's just been the most solid model, and a lot of guys that I've met here, you know, they moved to Alaska, saw one of my videos, bought a Glock 20 Gen 4, bought Kenai Gunfighter's chest holster, and it's been solid for them. They've never looked back, and it's cool to meet people that have done that. So moving on to number 3 is the Glock 29. Now, I kind of turned away from the Glock 20 and started preferring the Glock 29 just because it had that compact frame, and you can EDC it in the city really easy, and then just transition to the woods and you're good to go. KKM barrels can give you a little more barrel length, so it'll be just as good as the Glock 20 model, but, you know, with that compact frame. So big fan of the Glock 29. You know, that's Chuck. from Alaskan Ballistics. That's his EDC. He normally just carries a Glock 29 everywhere he goes, so pretty cool. But I have to say number 3 is Glock 29. Now we're getting up there, and this may not surprise some of you, but number 2, I'm going to have to give it to the Springfield XDM Elite 4.5, and then they also have the 3.8 model. Now, the first gen were super solid too. They torture tested those. They were just as solid as Glocks. They didn't jam. They had the big long ones. I don't know when they're going to come out with the 5.2 or whatever again in the Elites, but I once bid $1,900 on Gunbroker for one of the Gen 1s in Flat Dark Earth, and I lost the bid, thankfully, because that's way too much, but that shows you how popular that model is. But the XDM Elite is the 2nd gen, and you know, they're optics ready, and they just have one of the best triggers, if not the best trigger I've ever felt on a 10 millimeter. It's that meta trigger, competition trigger, or whatever. It's like 3.5 pounds. Is amazing reset, and they don't jam. So probably one of the best values. You know, you get one around the price of a Glock 20, you know, $550. Somewhere around that, you could probably find one. And then they have their sales once a year, if you're lucky, where they send you a soft case and a few extra mags. And then it's like the best value ever. So that's number 2, XDM Elite. Now, it's not much, you know, not very far above the Glocks, but on at least today, I'm rating it above the Glocks. Tomorrow, I'd probably rate the Glocks above it. You never know where I'm going to be on any given day. But this comes to the final number 1 10 millimeter, in my opinion, is the Dan Wesson Razorback 1911 chambered in 10 millimeter. Now, these things are not cheap. They're high-end 1911s. They go for around, $1,900, I think. You might be able to find one like between $1,600 and $1,900. They're not cheap, though. They are just made so well. Frank the Tank had one, and he had to tune it a little bit. He had to get the right spring for it and use the right ammo. Mine, however, is just fed everything, every kind of hard cast, 220 grain, 200 grain, extreme penetrators, whatever I feed it, this has not jammed. It's got a 5-inch barrel. I'm getting better velocity and power than a Glock with, you know, a similar length barrel, just because of the chamber support and the lockup on a 1911 barrel. It is hammer fired, which I think is better than striker fired. It's all metal. It's got a little more weight, but the grip angle works for me. You know, I went out shooting with Alaskan Ballistics and Alaska Frontier 1 a couple years ago, and I had my Glock 20, and I was just like shooting a horrible group on this dirt hill, and then I picked up a it was one of those Desert Eagles, a Deagle in 50 AE, and I just, you know, I was shooting on a dime. And Chuck he couldn't believe it. He's like, "That's the best I've ever seen you shoot. Man, you should get a 1911. That Glock grip angle is not working for you. You need a 1911." And I did get one, and I've never looked back because it just fits my hand better. It's a really thin grip. And the only problem is you are getting less capacity, obviously, with the single stack. Now, I do have an 8-round magazine, so it's 8 plus 1 in this, and you do have to get used to the manual thumb safety. But other than that, I would rather carry something I can shoot better, that's going to give me more power, and I'm more accurate with it, and, you know, carry extra mags. So it's kind of funny. People call me a FUD, but I have turned away in some sense from the Tupperware striker fire polymer pistols, which I still really like, to now claiming that a 1911 and 10 millimeter is the best. Now, would I say a Turkish Gerson or something and chambered in 10 millimeter would reach the top? No. I'd almost rather have the high point than one of those. Those are not very good pistols. You know, people comment that theirs are 100%. I have not found that, but something like this, a high end, you know, you may want to Ed Brown or something, but the Dan Wesson Razorback, they do make a few other models with different lengths, but this is the best 10 millimeter in my mind that I have owned. It's also beautiful. It's like a collector's piece. So I definitely recommend it. Let me know what you guys think about my list. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel when you subscribe. And check me out on Instagram. Become a patron if you can. I have links below. And also check out my website, chukesoutdoor.com. Thanks for tuning in. I will have a special episode out Saturday morning where in the Razorback, I'm testing Buffalo Bore 220 grain hardcast and Underwood 220 grain hardcast to finally figure out which is the king of hardcast. So tune in Saturday morning. I appreciate you guys. It's Chuke, your friend in the field.
My name is Chuke. I like to trade my guns just for fun, but now I have none. Oh, look, get shot by a bear, but I don't care. I got a 10 millimeter. Chuke's Outdoor Adventures. Watch you almost die every time, guaranteed.